News Live. I'm Jeff C. I am so glad that you're here. I've got one of my good friends. What's his name again, Connor? Jason. Jason Knapp is here with. No, we did a show earlier, and I don't think I've told you this, Jason. It is one of the most downloaded and watched shows that we have done. And I know it's not you. It's probably the content. So, no, it was great. It was great. You gave a lot of great advice. And so we didn't get to finish our conversation. There was so much good content that we were talking about. So I thought this would be a perfect time to bring my friend Jason back on the show. How are you doing today?
I'm great. I'm like, what do they say? A rose between two. I don't know. I feel great.
But you made it through the storms, okay? Both of you guys did.
I did, so. Figuratively and literally.
Okay.
Yep. Yes.
It's didn't hit Orlando at all. Just storms.
No, it was a little glancing blow, and I'm excited to be continuing this conversation.
Yeah.
An ambitious topic, I must say.
It is. It is very, very. And Connor made it through. Connor actually went to the parks during the storm. I'm like, what? What was that planned? Did you like? Oh, no one's going to be here. I'll go.
Oh, you got to capitalize on those opportunities. Yeah, the theme parks were open, so I was sitting here doing some work. 4 o'clock rolled around, opened up the Disney app, saw all the low wait times. I got over there at 4:30, and I did Flight of Passage, Safaris. I did Expedition Everest, all by 6:30. It was
awesome.
And it's like a spa treatment for your feet in this parks because the drainage is great.
Oh, there you go. That's
wonderful.
Right. Yeah. All right, we got some of our friends showing up today. We got a good friend, Gary Stockton, watching over on YouTube. Gary, thank you so much. I don't know about beautiful faces, but we'll take it on this Friday of the first of the month to get us rolling. And then we have Mr. Fred saying, this should be fun. Great to see you guys. Great to see you in the comments over on YouTube. Mr. Fred as well. Carrie is saying, good morning. We've got Megan chiming in saying, hey, everybody. Rich Watts, another Momentum alumni, is here. Thank you, Rich, for showing up. And we have the incredible Zach Brown is saying, aloha. So this is going to be a fun show. We're continuing this conversation as we're going. We're talking about AI. We're talking about using AI creatively and in processes. And so I want you guys to ask your questions as much as possible during the show today. We want to make this all about you. And if you know somebody who's like, man, they've kind of been talking about this AI stuff, call them in to the conversation. Mention them down below from wherever you're watching. Even if they can't join us live, they can watch the replay, and we'd be happy to chime in there as well. So Connor and Jason, you guys ready? I'm going to hit go on the podcasting machine, and we will get started.
Let's do it.
Great.
Hello, folks. Welcome to Social Media News Live. I'm Jeff C., and you're not.
And I'm Connor Brown, and this is the show that keeps you up to date on what's happening in the world of social media and more.
Have you ever pondered the magic behind storytelling enhanced by technology? Well, we have a guest who does just that. And if you've been curious about how AI can elevate the narrative of a tale, or maybe you're interested to understand the blend of creativity and artificial intelligence in content creation, if those thoughts have sparked your interest, then you are about to embark on a captivating journey. Today, we're ecstatic to introduce a guest who has seamlessly woven these elements together. Jason Knapp, the visionary behind Here with the Magic, has helped harness the power of AI to craft some immersive experiences that resonate globally. And Jason will unfold his story, his discoveries, and his innovative approaches to merging technology with storytelling. So sit back, clear your schedule, clear your mind, and let's get ready for this week's episode of Social Media News Live. Jason, my friend, how are you doing today?
I'm great. Thanks for having me back.
Yeah, and if you don't know Jason, make sure you guys go back and watch his or listen to his episode that we did earlier this year. You really should, because he's an amazing guy. He's the founder and visionary behind Here with the Magic, a multi-channel platform that provides immersive and calming experiences set primarily in the world's most beloved theme parks. Leveraging his eclectic background, Jason is a self-taught creator, and he's channeled his lifelong passions into creating content that aims to bring joy, comfort, and connection to audiences across the globe. Together with his dedicated team, he has cultivated a devoted community of viewers, listeners, and supporters who regard Here with the Magic as their personal escape from everyday stresses. It really is an amazing channel, so make sure you guys go check that out. Jason, once again, thank you, my friend, for being here.
Well, it's my pleasure, especially after that introduction.
So I was thinking earlier, Jason has actually seen me at like my best and at my worst. So like my best is when I'm like speaking at Momentum or Social Media Marketing World. I think is where like we first met, is I think where we did it. And then at my worst, like waiting for my turn at the buffet on a cruise ship, because I can get hangry. So
if I remember correctly, I think I was exercising and you were dining and
I was, yeah,
pointing
that was
at me.
exactly right. It was great entertainment to watch you go around laps while I was eating. I actually did my first cruise with Jason and his wife. Well, my wife was there too, because that would have been weird. But that was a lot of fun. And speaking of that, because one of the things Jason does, and you guys really do have to go check out the Here with the Magic YouTube channel, because I want to talk a little bit about some of the content that he's created. He had the 360, it was 180 sunrise of, on my first cruise, he was there as well. He was doing some video work, and I was able to go back with my Oculus and watch that sunrise again on YouTube. It was just really, really cool. He's got some 360 stuff that he's done. I was watching like the Japanese pavilion over at Epcot, which is one of my favorite spots, and that was actually 360. And I was telling him before, it became a thing like, where is Jason hiding? Because he's not on camera. The camera is just sitting there, and I'm like, are you leaving the camera just sitting there and going off in the park riding Tron or something? I don't know. So anyway, that was a fun little thing. So what other stuff do you have on your channel? Because we're going to be talking about this AI and immersive technologies and all that stuff today. What other kind of things? I mean, your Choose Your Own Adventure is amazing. What's some other things that you have on there?
Well, I think, it's a balance of, we primarily started as VR oriented videos. So 360, as you were talking about, as well as the 380. That's not even a thing. The 180 3D, which actually has a kind of a strong following, but the quality of it isn't my favorite, so we haven't done as much of that. Hoping that technology advances and we can get back into that a little bit more. But the idea behind everything we do is bringing people into these spaces as immersively as possible, and so not just through video, but also through audio. So even the traditional videos, and there's scores, hundreds actually of traditional videos, so you can watch them on your TV, on your computer, on your device. Even those, unless they have music accompanying them, they're almost entirely also recorded in binaural sound as well. So you can feel as if you're there from an audio standpoint. And then, of course, we extended that into Soundscapes, which is the podcast, weekly podcast, again, immersing people in this sort of ambient sounds of our happiest places, and that can be found on YouTube as well through their
so I was looking at some of the soundscapes, and it's almost like, it's not ASMR, which is a big thing, but it's very immersive.
No, and it's not.
Let me rub my beard on the microphone. What there are actually channels like that. I could be big. What is that binaural sound? Explain to people what that is compared to just like slapping on your headphones and listening to music.
Well, in terms of my understanding of it, because I'm not going to get into the science, that would be Fred Abley's area. It's essentially, it sounds like you're actually there, and that means it's recorded in stereo, but it's recorded using microphones that actually sit in the ears. And I know that sounds weird, but it's what you have to do because of this, and because of the spatial sort of the distance in how each stereo, the stereophonic recording happens. It just kind of recreates the really the sound as if you were there. And so the technology isn't that advanced. It's been around for decades and decades and decades, but for whatever reason, it's not heavily used. And that is different than what you'll hear people talk about ambisonic sound. You'll hear people talking about like surround sound. These are all different technologies. And so the surround sound you have in your house is very different than ambisonic, which is very different than binaural. Binaural is really focused on presenting sound as if you would hear with your ears naturally.
So you're actually going around the parks with microphones in your ears to record this?
Yeah.
Interesting. I did not know.
And Zach.
And Zach does it too. Hopefully you clean them between the thing.
Well, they're not the same headphones, thank goodness. But he tends to go to the places that are a little, more difficult and that
get
I don't
it.
want to go to. Yeah.
I get it. So Fred says that means you're thinking someone's actually behind you when they aren't. I mean, it's really incredible to listen to, and I really like. I have some apps that I use like Brainwave and stuff like that. But I like listening to the soundscapes because it's nostalgic because it brings me back, and you hear some of the music. I mean, it's really cool. So if you guys are fans of the park or just like ambient sounds to work by, you need to check out Jason's podcast, The Soundscapes, and it's really, really cool. So, all right, I just wanted to tell people before we got started, some of your background, some of the stuff that you offer, because I think it's really cool. But let's jump into this AI stuff, because I know you nerd out about it. I'm a nerd about it too, and we have a lot of friends in the audience who nerd about this as well. So how do you believe, like, because you're a big storyteller, you use technology to tell your soundscapes and your VR, you're using these tools to actually do storytelling. So how do you believe AI can enhance storytelling, especially with this immersive experiences like Here with the Magic?
I think you have to remember, for us, I'm primarily focused on delivering authentic experiences, which doesn't seem to square with the use of AI, right? But so I haven't directly used AI to enhance the final product storytelling, so to speak. I think there's still tremendous potential in the realm of AI for the creative process and post production. That's how I experience it. That's how I use it. So it's assists with brainstorming, providing creative insights, optimizing post production workflows, like from thumbnail creation to video stabilization, reframing, scene detection, and then of course the audio remixing piece as well. And I think that the integration of AI makes a lot of the work much more efficient. And so that allows creators, to dedicate more time to the actual like creation of the storytelling piece, the essence of the storytelling. And so I think as AI technologies advance, I think there's definitely more potential for direct enhancement of the narrative. I think, and we'll talk about this a little later, like tailoring content dynamically based on viewer behavior or based on viewer preferences and that sort of thing. But in terms of bringing it back to what we do, it's all about using AI as part of the production process, not to be confused with using AI to actually create content.
Right. Well, just for example of stuff that has advanced, even in the stuff that I've done, is like a lot of the video stuff where, like the wire work, when you have like something that you're trying to take out of a video. I had like a spot on a mirror when I did a little affiliate thing, and I was able to take AI and erase that, and it followed the frame and cleaned it all up, which before I would have to rotoscope hours worth. And I was thinking, like, even with your 360 stuff, like pretty soon you'll be able to say, like, just take out that shadow of the tripod so it's super immersive, or that middle section where all the 360 has where the tripod is, the little watermark or whatever
that walks into the frame.
Yeah, exactly. Eating ice cream.
And you could do that now to a certain extent. Like you mentioned, taking the spot off of the mirror or whatever. Which tool did you use for?
I use After Effects. And they have a beta thing. Yeah.
So it works really well, especially for the generative fill. So where you have a small space and where you're not moving the camera around a lot, it works great. Where it also works great with moving frames and more complex video as well. It's just the processing time can really kill you. And so for our application, it's a little more difficult. I've played around with the technology a little bit. We had a video. This is a non-Disney video, which we do a lot of, which people don't know, but there's a lot of non-Disney related videos out there as well, from some of my favorite spaces. This one in particular being at the Palace of Fine Arts in San Francisco. And in this, it is just a perfect scene. It's like the lighting's perfect. The birds are flying by almost on cue. Everything's great. But then you have this dude who just kind of walks through the scene.
Connor.
I mean, he's a pedestrian. I know. It's like,
my apologies.
I thought he was AI, but then he actually shows up and I'm like, okay. So I played around with trying to remove that person, and it works. But the time it takes to do it and process it and reframe things so that the generative refilling works properly, because basically what the AI is doing is taking everything around it from the frames preceding and after, and it's filling in that space that you're trying to,
Right.
brush out essentially.
Hmm.
And so it can do it. It's just it's still not quite there for the level of authenticity we have. And then, and I think for me, it's also about balancing again the authenticity with the story that we're trying to tell, the feeling that we're trying
Right.
to convey, right? So sometimes it's just better to leave it in.
Yeah, and those tools are getting better. Like they're getting better and faster. Like I keep getting updates from Adobe. And I'm like, really? Wow. And by the way, Nick Nimmin, who was our guest last week, had a bunch of stuff about shooting video with AI. He has one out right now that shows how he's actually doing video, and he's changed his backgrounds to all these. It's amazing. It's just amazing the stuff that you can do now. So make sure you check that out and check out that episode. But go ahead, Connor.
Yeah, so I love the notion that, AI can help us be more creative, not necessarily take away our creativity. But I think that there are some ways that AI can probably enhance maybe engagement or user preferences. You talked about like creating thumbnails. Thumbnails are very specific to your audience, the person you want to click on that video. The thumbnail has to speak to them. And there's probably other ways. So Jason, what ways do you think AI can help in tailoring that content to an individual user and maybe even helping to increase engagement?
I think there's tremendous potential, in its capabilities. I think that in terms of analyzing user interactions and their feedback and viewing patterns to suggest content that might more deeply resonate with an individual viewer and their tastes and their interests. I think it offers the possibility of creating interactive experiences where elements, as I said before, like are dynamically altered based on their preferences. Um, I I think AI could also help us understand like which portions of the content are more interesting. This is something YouTube used to do with their 360 videos. They don't do it anymore, which is really unfortunate. I think there was some concerns, like creepy concerns, because
Right.
they would track, you could track in a 360 video in a VR environment, like where somebody was looking, for example, and you would get that data back about what they were actually paying attention to, which was actually really helpful to know, because for me, it validated this belief that I had that people aren't really looking behind them very much in 360 videos. So,
Ah, that's why you went to 180.
that's why, well, because 180 it allows for the 3D
Right.
processing, which provides a more immersive experience. So yes, but they don't do that anymore. But I think there is data to be had there that would allow us to refine the strategies for maximizing engagement, right?
Right.
And the personalization pieces, I think, is going to be huge.
Yeah, and I want to dive into that in just a second. But one of the things is our friend Dustin, who is the creator of Magi, which is a great app, and that we've all played with. He says, "I can't believe I'm late to this conversation." You're good, man. You're good. But there's another question from Jim, our friend Jim, over at watching on YouTube. He goes, and this is a great question. Like, what is the difference between? And he's kind of being silly, but I understand what he's asking. Difference between AI and a serious group of people brainstorming during a session. So
Yeah, that's a fantastic question, and I think that the difference is, there's a lot of differences, and I think that the most obvious difference is that you need a large group of
right,
serious people who have contextual awareness, and also come, if that makes sense. I know it froze up there for a second.
say it again. Say your last
I
part
know it
again.
froze up
Yeah.
there for a second. I think the biggest part for me is that they're not emotionally invested. AI is not emotionally invested in the outcome of a conversation, right? So the brainstorming piece of this, you can get, I think, probably better results with a group of contextually aware people who are also creative. But you have to get them together. You have to, actually have a conversation. It's not, it's not always, you're not always able to do it in real time. And AI allows a creator to basically have that conversation with a group just like them, but also you can flip a switch and make it not like them, right? Like, hey, give me counter arguments. Give me, tell me the things I'm not thinking about. Give me, other approaches to this. And I jokingly, okay, not jokingly, seriously, this is a little embarrassing. I have a conversation. I have various conversations that have labels, and one of which is a conversation that I had with Steven Spielberg. Of course, not real Steven Spielberg.
Right.
It's like AI Steven Spielberg. But the idea was saying, look, I'm trying to storyboard this. I'm trying to come up with a way to approach presenting this information. How would you do it, Steven Spielberg? Like knowing all the things that you know. And it kind of goes through the process. Is it the same as having a conversation with Steven Spielberg? Of course not. But
it's better than nothing.
It's pretty interesting. And to be able to switch it to a different person or a different vantage point, that is extremely powerful from a creative standpoint. And then, you know what? I can say, you know what, Steven? I'm not going to take your advice. Right. And I don't have any kind of career jeopardization from that.
Yeah. That kind of workflow to make you a better creator, I think is what people miss. They get thrown into the thing of like, I've got to, it's stealing content, or it's not really you, or it's going to take over and kill us all like Skynet. There's some of these other subtle things that if you can think creatively about how to use it for creativity, you can kind of get ahead of the pack. Connor, you had a follow-up question.
It's not so much a follow-up question, but I think this is just a good talking point, and it is so true. This is how it can enhance our creativity and help us as creatives. I also just want to kind of point out, last week thereabouts, Google had a bit of a algorithm update, which they kind of do frequently. This wasn't a big one, but I think a big component of this new update was they started de-optimizing or, putting pages down in their search results that were only AI created. There's a lot of blogs, a lot of websites. You feed.
Oh, is everybody gone?
I'm here. I thought the AI kicked out for a second.
Yeah, Connor's got.
What it is.
They don't like you talking about them. Google doesn't.
They're they are monitoring all this stuff. So this isn't a replacement for creativity. This is an enhancement to our own creativity.
So, on this note, I want to share the workflow, because this is really, really practical. So we just did a 5-part deep dive into podcasting, and we did that. I had all different guests, and we talked about podcasting. And what I did at the beginning of that is I said, I brought it to AI, use Dustin's tool and some other things. But I said, hey, go research these people as guests, right? Tell me what they're good at. Don't interlap any of the content, and give me 5 topics for shows, okay? So it broke those down. I liked some of them. I didn't like some of them. Okay, cool. And then I was able to, merge that together. Another time I had the Dealcasters on, which are Chris Stone and Jim Fuse. And I had messaged them and said, hey, what do you guys want to talk about? And they both came back with 2 different things. I'm like, oh, crap. And so what I did is said, hey, AI, take these and help me merge them together and make good questions and a good show flow from it. And then I can take out parts or whatever. But that saved me so much time, and it made a better show. And it's just those kind of things, like asking Steven Spielberg or, that kind of stuff I think is so, so very cool. Anyway, so Dustin has an answer to, he knows it all better than the rest of us, but he goes, answer to Jim's question, it's capacity. No matter how big the group, there's still a limited amount of creativity. And if you keep asking the question, the group's going to get hacked off at you and kick you out. So, sometimes AI, you can just keep going. You can just keep going, let's refine this a little more. Let's refine this a little more. And they don't get mad. Most times.
Look, and that can't. I mean, I joke about it a lot, but it can't be overstated that the lack of emotional, investment is really key to this thing. And what I found is I also get very different AI personalities, not because I ask for them, which I do sometimes, as I said, but because the way I'm responding to and the context of that conversation generates its Am I frozen again?
We're back. I don't know
Okay,
what's
good.
going on. Yeah.
I think that it's important to recognize that the lack of emotion in AI, in terms of its investment in what you're doing, is actually a positive, because you can ask it to refine, you can ask it to refine, you can ask it to refine, and it's not going to get upset about reworking it, right?
Right.
As normal, it's human. It's very human to be annoyed when somebody comes back and says, "Hey, I need you to do this again, or do it differently, or start all over."
Yeah. Yeah. So in this final kind of part of this section where we're talking about like AI and storytelling and engagement, like how do you envision with these advancements in AI, like user interactivity and personalization in your immersive experiences? Like how will you, as this develops, other than like asking Spielberg how to, do this shot, how do you think this will, interact what you're creating as a content creator?
Right. So from the viewer's standpoint, I think that Chris Blagg mentioned this. He mentioned Apple's being super intentional about not providing eye tracking data on the Vision Pro. I am super excited about Apple's Vision Pro
Yeah, me
coming
too.
out. I think it has incredible prospects for immersive storytelling, and the Vision Pro, in my opinion, I think is going to be a game changer in how content isn't just viewed, but how it's lived. So, like for Here with the Magic, I think there will be opportunities where our choose your own adventure type
Oh
videos,
yeah.
for example, become a standard, offering this just unparalleled interactivity. Our morning minute style videos, if you're familiar with those, could be transformed into full-fledged immersive experiences. So imagine like sitting in the center of a morning minute video, like where your living room becomes the beach at Crescent Lake, for example. Um, like that's near future stuff. And so I think that the Vision Pro's capabilities are going to allow us to tailor content that's not just in terms of that immersive nature, but I think also based on real time parameters like the viewer's location, the time of day, or even their self-reported emotional state.
Right.
So if it knows that it's evening, maybe it's going to serve up, offer up or suggest videos that are also in the evening, to kind of get you ready for
Oh.
kind of winding down and that sort of thing. And I think that level of personalization and interaction, I think that ushers in this new era of content that is like more deeply resonant and contextual and just incredibly engaging. Like I think that's the direction we're going in, like real soon. And I'm also excited to see, because it's an Apple product, I'm also excited and hopeful that we'll see some new tools within iOS devices, like iPhones, that also help content creators capture things that can be used in the Vision Pros as well.
Mm. Yeah, that comment by Chris, he said, them not being, they're not going to keep that data. But that eye tracking, from everybody I've read on the demos who have done it, they say it's so seamless. And it's like, so what I was thinking, like with your choose your own adventure, like if you could have that choose your own adventure and just look to that path and then you start following that path. I mean, that to me is the lowest hanging fruit for something like that. Like being able to walk around a park whichever way you want, or even Google Maps for, I remember the first time I put on my Oculus and I was able to just use Google Street View and walk down my where I used to walk to school every day. I was like, tears in my eyes. It was just, it was that immersive, and it's going to get better and better. And Apple, I mean, love them or hate them, they tend to do things right when it comes to new devices. We will see, but
yeah, we'll see. Well, and I think also, I mean, playing off the Google Street View, I think you're talking about Street View technology, which is amazing. One of my favorite things to do, and it's just all, it's a series of still pictures. It's not video. So I like the video aspects of things. But I love that you can dial back in time. So I can go back, I can, certain areas, unlike Florida, like go to California or some other areas where they have documented that streets view over years.
Yeah.
And you can, I can see what this looked like in 2012. I can see what it looks like today, near today. Being able to do something like that, everything we capture, not just me, but everybody else who's capturing images and video within Disney spaces and other places, they're also creating time capsules, and they're also creating, building on this ability to go back in time and visit these spaces as they existed previously, which, there's a lot of nostalgia tied to that, and being able to say, hey, I want to, like, for example, the Choose Your Own Adventure videos feature a frontier land with Splash Mountain,
Yeah.
right? You can't experience that anymore. And in the future, what we want to be able to do is give viewers the choice. Well, which era do you want to visit? Do you want to visit it with Splash Mountain? Do you want to visit it with Tiana's? I said Tatiana.
Right.
Tiana's. So I think there's a lot to be had
Yeah.
there as well. And the Vision Pro, I think, will help, kind of, just like you said, you can look in a direction maybe, or just kind of more naturally choose where you want to be, when you want to be.
That's really cool. One of the things I mentioned earlier, like I was able to go back because I remember that sunrise on the Magic because it was my first cruise. Like I was Lou Mangello's trip on the Magic. That was the first one. And I remember that sunrise, and I can see it in 180 video with your content, which I think the nostalgic factor and being able that I can revisit that anytime I want is very, very, very cool.
And that was the whole idea. I mean, that is the main thrust behind here. What the Magic was about. It was selfish. It was, I want to be able to go back to these spaces when I can't be there, which is most of the time. And how can we do that in a way that is accessible to anybody without having to have, VR devices? But if you have VR devices, great. Headphones, even better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't see a lot of harmonious things on your page.
Oh, I have there's a fantastic harmonious video.
Okay. I'm
You're
just
talking
curious
about.
So
Our video, I will say this. I will challenge you. I think that our harmonious video is better than actual watching the show in person, and I think it's better than anything Disney had put out in terms of showcasing
the
harmonious.
gauntlet
There,
has been
I
thrown
said it.
down. Yeah.
That's right.
Anyway, I was just giving you a hard time because I knew he did not like the actual thing. But, anyway, I'm not going to. This is a great question from Fred. He goes, it is liberating. It is the ultimate idea of Firestarter. But this last question is like, and that is the challenge I have. How do you not get overwhelmed with all that it can help you with? So let's talk about this before we move on to the next section. Is that one? It's easy to see the squirrel and go to the shiny object syndrome, but how do you, as a content creator, keep up with this stuff? Because this is the future. This is what's happening. We've got to keep going out and creating content. If you're a creator, you got to keep doing that. You got to put out those YouTube videos. You got to make those blog contents. So how do you make time in your day, Jason? Because you're a CEO of, another company. How do you take time to understand this new technology, find out where what I need to pay attention to? What is kind of your litmus test for this stuff?
My litmus test for it is, do I get more work done after I learn, about it? I think that I read a lot. There's a lot of blogs that I pay attention to, and podcasts that I pay attention to. You and I have conversations about it. Fred's here. We have conversations about it. It is easy to get overwhelmed by it because it's like the internet. You can go down the rabbit hole, and every day there are new tools coming out, and some of which are amazing, and some of which are just kind of retreads of other things that are out there already. You have other products that they'll say there's a third-party solution that offers this amazing add-on thing, and then all of a sudden you don't need it anymore because it's built into the original package. Adobe as a case in point there. And you also have Google, just like today, or in the past week, released Duet AI for their workspace platform for business users. So we've been playing around with that. There's so many. I'm actually being more intentional about slowing it down in terms of my adoption of things, because I'm recognizing that the technology is advancing so quickly, and creative people are doing some amazing things at integrating, both in terms of plugins and add-ons, but also within original products. Things are changing so fast that I don't want to overly invest in any solution yet, because I know that 6 months from now it's going to be vastly different. I know that a year from now it's going to be just incredibly different in terms of the tools that are available. And so this is something that we not only talk about in terms of content creation, but also, like as you were saying, on the kind of business side of things, we're looking at practice management platforms, or electronic medical record systems and things, and looking at integrations there. for trending data and business analytics and so forth. I think that you have to be careful right now because it's 5 years from now, it's a new ball game completely. Everything's going to be different.
Yeah.
AI will be it will be part of everything we touch technologically.
Yeah. So I wanted to do a real quick shout out. So there's Lou's only waiting for this part of technology. He just wants to sit in the middle of your living room to be able to watch, which.
Yeah, I mean, he can do that now.
He's a little, he's not very far. Yeah. That's a little creepy, but let me tell you, what is not creepy are my friends over at Ecamm, and they're the ones who make this show possible. Find out more about them at socialmedianewslive.com/Ecamm. Really, we talked about community, and I give Lou a hard time, but he's got an amazing community. A lot of his community members are here. Ecamm has a great community too. We just did podcasting. They're always innovating, and you guys got to check them out if you're not using them for live video or even presentations or podcasts. I get
for Zoom. For people who aren't, if you are using Zoom,
Lou,
and not using Ecamm, you're not using Zoom properly. Like, what are you doing?
You can do all this stuff inside of Zoom. Like, I could do this exact same show inside of Zoom if I wanted to with their virtual camera. You also have the isolated tracks when you're done, isolated video tracks. It's a no-brainer if you have a Mac and you're creating content. Check out Ecamm at socialmedianewslive.com/Ecamm. Anyway, on that note, you talked about like technology is changing so fast. Like, I've been trying to get this Descript course out, and it's coming out I think next week. But they keep changing everything. Like, weekly, new stuff comes out, and I like get a module done, and they're like, "Oh, by the way, we just bought Squadcast," and I'm like, "Ah!" So, I think your point that you just made about, being focused on what you want AI to do for you, instead of like all the new stuff that it can. What do you need it for, and then kind of dive in that way, because I feel your pain. So, this next section I want to talk about, and this is one of the sections we did not get to last time. Maybe some tools and some practical things that you've seen, but let's talk about some ways AI can actually fit into the creative process for your video production, like the way you're using it now. So kind of just dive into that.
But we talked about how I think it's really become this essential part of the process in terms of being a collaborative assistant of sorts. So it aids in the brainstorming sessions and, organizing crazy thoughts and offering the iterations of copy ideas and things like that. In post-production, there are tools, like especially those tools that are built into Adobe, but other products as well, that help with video stabilization, reframing, and the scene detection, the audio selection, the audio remixing, which is a big deal. And it doesn't replace the human touch, but it supports it, right? And it allows us to focus more on capturing those authentic experiences. And I think that, I don't want to jump ahead too much, but I think that for me, it's a balancing act. It's not that AI it's not enhancing it directly in terms of the storytelling and the final product, but it's making these contributions through the process.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, yeah, let's talk about that then. Let's get more specific in how you use it with what you're doing. So Jason, some instances where AI is being used in your work right now, and how has it influenced the outcome? I also want to know, like, what's one AI thing where you couldn't imagine your life without it now that you've started using it?
Oh boy. Well, I think for me, it's all about, let's just focus in on soundscapes, for example, like Soundscapes podcast. AI is instrumental in organizing in my thoughts, and like for the episode intros, for example. So it helps offer fresh approaches, where I'm coming, like right now I'm stumbling through words, but if I'm trying to come up with this eloquent way to describe a feeling I'm having, I will, I'll listen, I'll come back and listen to the soundscape that we're going to put out, and then I'll just make notes throughout. This is how I'm feeling. This is what it's reminding me of. This is the thought I want to convey, the story I want to tell about this particular thing. And it's kind of a brain dump. And then it helps me because I have a conversation dedicated to this. So it also has this contextual awareness of how we've refined things over time, right? So I'm able to then engage with it again, like a week later, and say, okay, here's the new subject, and this is what I'm featuring, and this is really what I focus on, and this is kind of what I want to say, and then it helps me draft those, the copy for that, and it, just in terms of better explaining a concept that I might be trying to convey. And this is another thing I am increasingly using is within Adobe. Actually, I'm one of those weird people who I don't love Audition, the Adobe Audition.
Right.
I actually use Adobe Premiere Pro for the podcast production. I know that's weird. I know it's weird. I just real comfortable with the tools there.
Yeah.
But one of the things they have built in there is the remix ability. So when I'm in need of finding the right, I have the right music. They spend a lot of time finding the right music for the intro and the outro, which is always different every episode. And you got to time it to the narrative. I try to keep the narrative to some 300 words or less typically, and then but good luck finding a piece of music that is 2 minutes long, right? So and historically I would spend sometimes hours. It's embarrassing, and if Lou's still watching, he's gonna be shaking his head, but I would spend hours just kind of dialing that in. Right now I can use the remix tool, and it's not always perfect, but it's so fast, and then I can just tweak things from there in terms of making it kind of the more precise length, which is just incredible.
So I gotta reiterate that, because to be honest, I didn't know about it for a long time. When it was out for a while, I was like, oh, it's another tool by Adobe, because that was the same thing with me when I would create content. Like music is very important to me. I wanted that end beat to hit just right. And you would spend time like, okay, you'd have a great piece of music, and then you have to splice it and try to make it so it sounded like the beats were together. And this thing has changed everything, like how fast you can get stuff done. So if you're not using Remix, it just saves you so much time.
And for those who are just wanting quick, you find your audio in this case is in Premiere Pro. I guess it works in Audition too. And then you for me, I right click it. I right click on the audio. You get the little remix option there. You click on that, allowing for remix, and then you just do your magic over in your column for me, it's to the right. But the other thing that I use is Alphonic, which is a tool that I think a lot of podcasters use for just dialing in the audio more. Now what's interesting, I can't use Alphonic for the actual major portion of soundscapes, because Alphonic while it makes everything sound better, Alphonic will kill the binaural sense of things, because it just you lose that dimension. So I can't use it for that, but I do use it for the intros and the outros, especially if you have an environment which might be a little bit noisy, or maybe you're getting a little bit of feedback or static from your microphone or something. It is incredible at cleaning that up and sort of more standardizing the sound there, which again is another AI tool.
Yeah. I love it. I use it all the time. It just kind of, it's like that final on your podcast.
We also use it for I mentioned this before, for stabilization, for reframing. Adobe's got some really cool tools for reframing. If you used to be I got a video, I got to take this video, I got to capture this in portrait mode, and I got to capture it in landscape mode, and most of the stuff we do is in landscape, and so a lot of times we forget to do it in portrait, and then it's like, oh gosh, now of course, because of Instagram, which that's a subject for another day. Adobe, now you could say, oh, I'm going to take this video, and this is the point of the thing, this is the thing I want to make focus be, and now it's going to reframe it and follow things, and it's made that part so much easier. I don't use it a lot because I'm not a fan of the medium, but
it's really easy for repurposing. Yeah. So Barry goes, does it remove screaming kids and trash can sounds? And I'm like, I don't think it's
so that's the thing. Yeah. See, that's the thing that I'm looking forward to AI being able to help remove. I think we're this close, right? I think we're this close to AI being able to remove specific frequencies of things like kid screaming. or the trash can. God, the trash cans. The noise that the trash cans make in an otherwise just beautifully serene setting.
So I know Adobe has something similar, but for a podcast, when you have bad audio, because I do a lot of stuff, and sometimes Guy goes and interviews people, and they just like open up their laptop and start talking, and it's just the audio's not the best. Descript has a thing called Studio Sound, which just blows me away. Like I'm thinking like, there's no way we're gonna have to record this, and I'm gonna have to tell Guy, nope, it's not gonna work. And we run it through the Descript Studio Sound, and it fixes it. So I think that like you were saying is coming. So
Well, let's talk about the future too,
okay,
right?
yeah.
I know everything is changing every single day. What we have now is going to be different tomorrow, especially in the AI landscape. So, Jason, I'm kind of asking you to look into this crystal ball that is impossible to look in, but 5 to 10 years, from now, where do you see AI changing the landscape of video creation?
Again, it's hard. Things are changing so quickly. I think it's easier to say this is where I think this is where we'll be in a year or 2 years, right?
Yep.
I think for sure it's going to allow us, the creators, to be more present in the moment, focus on capturing that moment, and less worried about having to be, concerned about the technical setup of things, right? I think it's going to increasingly free us up from mundane aspects. One of the things I'm really hopeful for in the near future is that just like the large language models learn, right, to be able to learn our style from a creation standpoint, so it can start to edit like us, right? And so it's not a matter of using an editing tool, but it's a matter of it actually becoming like learning how you edit, because it's watching you and learning from you, and then being able to start editing as you. And I know that sounds a little creepy, but it's really no different than creating macros currently and doing things like that, right? So, but also then being able to make suggestions based not only on the conversation we're having, but also on the examples we point to it. So here's my dream. Like being able to bring in a raw clip or clips of videos, like into Adobe Premiere Pro, for example, and then tell it, hey, look, this is what I'm looking for it to feel like. And maybe I can compare it to another video that I've edited, right? Like, this is kind of what I'm going for in terms of style. And maybe even share some music with it, or ask it to create some music, just anew. And then have it make those edits and adapt the music and provide scene samples, right, that I can then choose from. Like I can A/B it or something and say, like, I want this, this, not this, yes, this, not this. And then it refines it just like we would in a conversation, like in ChatGPT, for example. And then it applies it to the remaining part of the video. That, I think my gut tells me we're actually not that far from it. It's really more about processing power, right? Like I have no doubt that people with like the right equipment will be able to do this very soon. Maybe are already doing it. But I think it's people who are like us, who are running on MacBook Pros or things, that I think that's going to be a processing power thing more than anything, right? And like I can currently, this is something that was just rolled out relatively recently in one of the music licensing platforms. Like I can go in and upload video, and it will then suggest music for that video.
What platform is that?
It is, I think it's Elemental Sound.
Okay, yeah.
But I'm using that. It's not perfect, but it's interesting. Like it did offer up some stuff that I hadn't found before, and I felt just when I thought I had like heard everything on Elemental Sound, it was there. Soundstripe is also doing has integrated ChatGPT into its own database, so you can sort of have more of a conversational search within that platform, and that has actually been pretty powerful too, in terms of instead of like checking boxes for the types of music or genres or feelings, you can just tell it like in a sentence what you're looking for, and it makes suggestions based on that. So I think that we're getting there, right? But that's where I will, from a selfish standpoint, that's where I'd like to see things going. And then 5 to 10 years from now,
that's a long time. That's a lot of
with AI.
Do it for me.
So one of the things that I wanted to point out is, and I'll put this in the show notes, but one of the cool things about Dustin's tool, Magi, is it does let you create personas, like your own persona. So it doesn't really learn from you like what your style is, but you can actually kind of guide it and then save that. That's one of the cool things about Dustin's tool is it has all these one, you can use Claude or ChatGPT or whatever to switch between, but also you can save a persona and use, like I have a social media news live persona that I use in there, which is cool. It kind of gets me jump started when I ask the questions. The other thing, there's a tool that I just saw yesterday called InVideo, I think is their new AI thing that they're using, but it actually, you type in kind of a script, and instead of like, you've seen some of those videos that are created like text to video, where it has like their arms are like coming out of their head, and it's just really not there yet. This one actually goes and it has like 16 million stock images, and it creates a video based on those images. So I don't think it'd be great for just creating a whole script or a YouTube video, but getting some B-roll quickly, that kind of thing. So I think
storyboarding.
It's
I think from my standpoint, like would never use that kind
Right.
of technology for the final product, right? But I think for generating ideas or for storyboarding, it can be really helpful. And you can, right now using either Adobe Firefly or OpenAI's Dahlia or not Dahlia, it's a Dali. Anyway, Dali. Thank you. I have Dahlia Lounge on my mind.
Hell yeah.
There's a lot of tools out there that for image generation that you can use, and I have used for just sort of brainstorming purposes, not for a final product, but for just generating ideas and things. And that's only going to improve over time.
Right. Mr. Fred has a great point when we were talking about like how to use AI. He agrees teachers don't become teachers so they can grade papers, nor did cinematographers become artists to master, an editing tool. Like that's very, very true. I agree with that, Mr. Fred. And Chris says, I heard that Google Plus AI is coming. Yes, I will be on the beta for that one. So will Dustin. He was there with me on AI. So I said Google Plus, so that's the drinking game that Chris likes to play. So let's go into this because we're talking about, creating, and, people are really interested in these tools and where it's going to be in 5 years. But I want to talk about like some of this ethics and future as like we're creating, I think it was this past month that ChatGPT made it so you can opt out of them searching your website. Like there's a piece of code you can put your robots.txt. New York Times did that, which was a big news item. They took it out so they can't be searched. So there's that concern that, hey, they're scraping my content to make this content. I want to get compensated, all that stuff. So as AI becomes more integrated into this creative process, we're using the tools. So what ethical considerations should us as creators be aware of or be thinking about?
I mean, I think that there needs to be transparency. Like I think that AI. I think when AI plays a substantial role in the content creation, like where AI's involvement could be considered transformative or foundational to the content itself. I think it's critical to be transparent about its involvement. I think that's something people should be doing now if they're using AI to actually create product or to create experiences that are really AI, not reality. I think you have to be transparent about that for sure. And I think that only in doing that are you going to be able to maintain trust with audiences and ensure that they're not misled about the origin or the authenticity of that comment. I think that, and I think that sometimes this gets like mentioned as like, okay, but I think it's important to actually talk about it. AI's role in perpetuating biases is real. Yeah. I think that AI models can inadvertently, it's been shown that they can inadvertently propagate biases that are already present in that training data. They're scraping websites and things. There's biases inherently in that, in those posts and so forth. So creators just have to be aware of this, and I think actively work against allowing AI to reinforce stereotypes that are harmful or biases. And I think you also have to be careful about that includes the biases that the creator brings to the process, right? Yeah. So because if you're now engaging with AI conversationally, you have to recognize your own biases and limited perspectives are also now going to be introduced and maybe even reinforced by the AI because it doesn't know any better. It's trying, to follow your lead, so to speak. And I think, like again, back to authenticity. I think while I think while the AI can assist in the various creative tasks, I think it's just important that creators work to ensure that the core message and the essence of the content remains authentically them, like true
Yeah.
to their vision. Because I think it's really easy as we outsource a lot of the process to the AI, especially as it comes to like repurposing and so forth, then you can end up having, I think, a lot of drift in terms of like what the creator's vision originally was, and then what the algorithm ends up like
Right.
actually presenting, right? So I think, and I maybe finally, I think even if AI plays a role in the creation, the onus is on the creator themselves to ensure that the output is going to align with like their own brand's values and their own personal values and their own ethics, right? I think that's an important piece. Don't just rely on AI or these tools. Don't just assume like, oh, they'll fix this for me.
Right.
You actually need to play a role in being responsible in that regard too.
Yeah. Jim says he liked the article where an attorney asked ChatGPT about the legal citations and and he filed it and they got in trouble because they were actually fake. So yeah, copying and pasting stuff that AI puts out is not a good idea. You need to read it and make sure that it's good. So thanks for that, Jim. I remember reading that as well. So Connor, you had the last question.
Yeah, I think for creators, it can also be a slippery slope. I don't know if you guys keep getting this ad on Instagram for an app. I think it's called like just a captions app. I've never tried it, but what they're touting is you can like be reading a transcript or on your screen, and it changes your eyes so it looks like you're actually.
Descript does that too. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's awesome, right? It's really cool, but
It's too uncanny valley right now.
right, you have to also consider, all right, well, I'm in the moment you're thinking, well, it's just changing my eyes, and then the next thing you want it to do is that much easier to convince yourself, and next thing you know, it's just a total AI version of you, and you're wondering, how the heck did I get here? It was just because of that one little thing that kind of set you down this course. And Jason, you mentioned, keeping it aligned with your brand's values and visions, especially when we have these slippery slopes in AI. How are you ensuring that here with the magic and your use of AI is aligning with your brand identity and values?
Well, again, while we employ AI to streamline processes and enhance the technical quality and refine the content and so forth, it's always done with this, unwavering focus on preserving the authenticity of the content, the authenticity of the moment. So I think for us, it's a small team, and so we collaborate so closely. It's a lot easier to ensure that every decision aligns with my core values and the vision. But I can imagine that this becomes increasingly difficult at scale, right? And where like the content creators aren't paying close attention throughout the process. But I think that the point is you do need to have the human eyes on things. You do need to make sure you're doing final pass reviews of things, or actually as frequently as possible, because the iterations will, things move out of alignment over time. And I think that there's going to be, I think because of AI, this is what's going to get interesting. It's almost like, how all the kids are now all excited about LPs and they're buying record players and stuff. Like, I think that there is going to be this interest sooner rather than later in authentic experiences and things that aren't overly refined, things that aren't so we don't want to necessarily engage with somebody who's always staring at us properly, because that's a little freaky anyway. But to know that, I'm having this authentic experience because of the flaws. I think that actually is going to have a lot of merit too, which gives great hope for me because of all the flaws.
Yeah. We're all flawed, very much. Some of us more than others. But this is a great point by Mary. She goes, everyone's saying their job will be taken over by AI. Needs to figure out how AI can help them with their job and integrate that. So I think that's using it as a tool, I think, is a great perspective. I think some jobs will be affected. Like, I would not want to be a marketing copywriter, and that's all I did right now.
I think that's the next conversation we have to have, which, I'm inviting myself back again, of course.
Sure.
So you're welcome. But I think we have to talk about, like, because content creation, whether you're one person or dozens of people, it is a business of sorts, right? So how do you, using AI to actually run the business side of things is its own separate domain of
Yeah.
sorts, and it plays an increasingly important role, I think, for a lot of people.
Yeah.
There's going to be their typewriter repairman, right?
Yeah.
I don't know.
They're going to be no more. So before we wrap this up, I want to do it because I'll be talking about this exact section, all this stuff and my workflows, how I do it mostly for repurposing content using AI and using that at our pal Lou Mongello's Momentum, September 29th through October 1st. I think there's a couple of spots left. He caps it at 50. So if you are interested in this and so much, much more, Lou does such a great job, but I'll be speaking there September 29th through October 1st. I'd love to see you there. You can find out more at loumongello.com/momentum. But before that, Jason, because we met at Momentum, we didn't meet, but we've hung out at Momentum before. Where can people find out more about you and all the stuff you're doing? And the immersive stuff you do is really second to none. You guys need to follow him. You need to subscribe to him on YouTube, his podcast, all the things. Where can people find out more about the amazing Jason Knapp?
They can go to herewiththemagic.com. They can go to youtube.com/herewiththemagic. Same with the Facebooks and the Instagrams. The soundscapes you can find also on YouTube as well, but you can also find it wherever you get your podcasts. Just search for Soundscapes by Here with the Magic. Choose your own adventure. Quick little easy way to get there is herewiththemagic.com/adventure. That'll get you there as well. And you probably can get more of me than you want.
Never enough. So speaking of somebody who's never enough it sounded bad. That was horrible intro. He is more than enough. It's Connor Brown. Connor Brown, where can people find out more about you?
Well, you can actually also see me speaking at Momentum. I'll be talking on a panel about storytelling. I don't know if that influences you to go or influences you to not go, but I'll be there speaking regardless, and you should go for Jeff's session. But you can go to wdwopinion.com or at wdwopinion across the socials to learn more about me and all my Disney planning services.
Yes. So this, once again, was an amazing show. Thank you guys, Greg, Mary, Jim, Gary, everybody who showed up, Fred, and gave some great comments. Let me know if you'd like us to continue this conversation with Jason. We're going to do it anyway, but what we'd like to specifically want to talk about, because I think this is going to be in the news. It's going to be a part of our lives moving forward, and I think understanding this and trying to get all the nuances and the tools and all that stuff is really important. So let me know how we could refine it to make it worth the time that you guys have spent so graciously with us during this Friday. We appreciate all you, and we will see you guys next time. Special thanks to our sponsor, Ecamm. You can find out more about them at socialmedianewslive.com/Ecamm. We all use them. Lou Mongello uses them. So many people in our audience. I know Jim and Chris both use them. It's an incredible company. It's an incredible product, and I really appreciate them for sponsoring the show. And with that, we'll see you guys next time. Bye, everybody.